Okay, let's get into these short treks. The first one, well, they're not in order. There was two of them, but the first one that I put down was The Girl Who Made the Stars, written by Brandon Schultz, directed by Olatunde Osunsami. When a lightning storm in space scares a young Michael Burnham, her father aims to ease her fears with a mythical story about a brave little girl who faced her fears head on. So I've got mixed feelings about this episode. I liked it, but it didn't. I mean, it wasn't Star Trek. It was just. It was a good story. It just wasn't a Star Trek story, if you know what I mean.
You're out
No,
of your mind.
actually, no, I don't. Please,
I
please.
fundamentally disagree with you on every level.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Everything you just said is wrong.
It takes place 1,000 centuries ago, they said, and it didn't have anything to do with. I mean, there was an alien at the end of it, but that was about it. It reminded me of when I was a kid. Nickelodeon used to have this series that I can't remember the name of now, but they used to do like animated versions of all these folklore stories from different cultures and things like that. And it reminded me of that. I did enjoy the episode. I just, when I was watching it, I wasn't just like, yeah, this really feels like Star Trek, because it didn't. It felt like I was watching a Pixar movie or something like that. The animation was really well done. It wasn't Pixar level animation. It was kind of Illumination type animation, I guess. But other than that, it was okay. Chris?
I think that is, I'm going to go on record as saying these are the first two short treks aside from Calypso that I actually really enjoyed. I thought that every other short trek, aside from these three, were derivative nonsense. Even though you have Ethan Peck as Spock, even though you have your little cameos of Pike and all that stuff. To me, The Girl Who Made the Stars was amazing. I thought it embodied every ideal that Star Trek espouses. And it shows you that the spirit of exploration and curiosity and not being bigoted or afraid, but actually actively seeking out the unknown is what makes humanity transcend itself. And if that's not Roddenberry's vision, what we all call Roddenberry's grand vision, to me, that was always at the heart of it. And I think that The Girl Who Made the Stars was a wonderful way to sort of bring that into a new context. And I also thought that it was great because you had Burnham as a child with that relationship with her dad, and then knowing what happens with her parents. It kind of choked me up. And so it had a little discovery link to it as well. But I just thought that the way she projected herself into that story was an amazing way to juxtapose the two time settings and show you it's not really about Wagon Train to the Stars. It's not really about being in space per se. It's about the spirit of exploration. And I thought it was amazing on every, and maybe I'm gushing because I just rewatched it and I loved it all over again. But yeah,
Well,
this to me is. Go ahead.
When I said that, I really did enjoy the episode. That's what I was trying to convey. I did enjoy it. I just didn't feel like it was Star Trek. But this whole season of short treks, I haven't really been crazy about. These two animated short treks, I think, are better than any of the ones that we've seen this season, because even though the one about the Tribbles was really funny and everything, they've all been really heavy on the jokes, other than the last one, and the last one was just kind of a throwaway, But I did, like you said, when you said you got choked up, I was watching this, I was thinking, this takes place probably, if not days, like months before the Klingon attack, because she's about the same age that it happened, when she would have went to live with Sarek and everything. So when she's in her room and she's saying she's scared that the darkness is going to eat her or whatever, like, Yeah, it is. It's gonna. That's the Klingons are literally gonna eat your dad, and pretty soon, you know. So that was kind of sad. Rick, what did you think?
I loved it. I had a feeling that it not really being Star Trek. Actually, I wasn't anticipating that particular argument, but this season of short treks has definitely not been pushing the narrative forward. And it doesn't bother me because, and it may be a matter of, and Chris, you can, I don't know if you feel the same way. I grew up reading lots of science fiction short story anthologies. And this season of short treks feels a lot like that, where it's a puppy. He's a puppy. Goodbye, puppy.
If you're not watching the video version of this, you have no idea what Rick is doing. He had a stroke or something there for a second.
Yeah. But these have been stories that take place in the Star Trek universe, but aren't necessarily doing anything to forward the Discovery narrative, and I'm cool with that. I'm enjoying them for the most part. The trouble with it, I rewatched the two short treks with my little girl tonight. The girl who made the stars and Ephraim and Dot, and she loved them. And then she was like, "Isn't there anything else?" And so I was like, "Well, we watched The Trouble with Edward because she loves tribbles, and she thought it was silly." And it was, yes, there's been some silly, and there hasn't been a lot of serious. I thought that The Girl Who Made the Stars was about, like Chris said, Gene Roddenberry himself, when he was talking to writers for TOS, was saying, wow.
Oh,
Thank you, Gene. You and me.
Gene Roddenberry himself said,
Gonna put that down.
He said that, while this is science fiction, the stories have to be human. The hardware is just incidental. And there is nothing more human than a parent comforting their child when they're afraid. And that's what this episode was. The story was kind of irrelevant, even though it tied back to, what I meant to go back and try to find which Discovery episode started with Michael narrating this story. I can't remember what it was, but it really didn't matter. It was just a beautiful story. It was, the art of it is breathtaking. I think the animation, the acting, everything is beautiful. But the human I think the juxtaposition of technology and the relationship between Michael and her father are what make this quintessentially Star Trek. No, it's not part of the bigger story. No, it doesn't do anything to move the narrative of what's happening to the crew of the Discovery forward. But it does humanize Michael Burnham a whole lot more. It shows us where she came from, and it shows us the relationship that was lost, that we know will be lost, in a few weeks or whatever, which makes it that much more poignant when she, hopefully there'll be more of a reunion with her mother. Who knows? And we're all assuming her father's dead. We never saw him get killed, so we don't know. This may be laying the groundwork for a reunion between Michael and her dad. If we have to put this in the big narrative. But I didn't feel it necessary. Once I realized that was Michael, once he came in and said, "What's the matter, Michael?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I just relaxed and enjoyed the tale. And that final scene gave me chills. When she leaps into the air with the bow, and it was
That's now the profile picture on my Facebook page because it's so amazing. Rick, if I can go back to one point that you said that kind of ties into what you were talking about. I've never been a huge fan of anthologies. I always liked longer form stories that I can immerse myself in. But one thing that you keep on hitting upon in your discussion of this is that it doesn't advance the main narrative, but you don't care. to me, there's no reason to advance the main narrative in these short treks. I think that they can be standalone tales, which is why I thought Calypso was amazing, because it told a simple story that was very well written, that was moving in a way that I had never seen in Star Trek. And I think that these two, maybe Ephraim and Dot is more of a comedy episode, but The Girl Who Made the Stars is another thing that embodies Star Trek. It doesn't have to sort of like quote tie in to the bigger narrative to me. And I think maybe it's because most of my fandom was formed after the animated series, before or after even, when the movies were out, the first crew movies, reading all of the pocket books, the Simon Schuster books. So to me, Star Trek fandom has largely been an adventure in standalone stories using the universe. And these, to me, embodied sort of the best of those experiences that I had reading those books.
I think that the short treks, as we go forward, are going to kind of diverge more and more away from. I think that the first season short treks were all Discovery related because that's the only Star Trek that we had. And now we've got these short treks that we've seen up until these two focused on the Enterprise because they had these new characters that they could play with. Now they're getting into some of the animation. Picard is coming out. They're going to have more stuff, more sets to play with. They're not going to build big expensive sets just to do a 10-minute short trek, so now they've got more stuff to play with. Now I do like I would like to see, I don't know if you guys ever watched Liquid Television back in the 90s, but it was it was a show that was on MTV. It was all animation, and it was a bunch of shorts. And
that's where Eon Flux came from.
Yeah, and everyone was a different animation style, and they didn't have anything to do with each other. I'd almost like to see a Star Trek series that's just that. It's just a bunch of animated shorts. And just 30 minutes, a few episodes a year, maybe 6 episodes a year, 30 minutes, just a bunch of animated shorts. I think that would be great. John, what do you think of The Girl Who Made the Stars?
Chris is correct.
Thank you, John. I wish I would hear that more on Captain Game Show.
I wish you would too, honestly. Yeah, no, it was fantastic. It vies with Calypso for me as my favorite of the short treks. I'm on record as a fan of the what if stories, that everything doesn't have to weave together. To me, short treks, and I could be completely wrong if they decide not to do this with me with like future episodes, but to me they're like they're like deleted scenes at the end of a DVD. Like they could be included or not. It doesn't hurt the story if they're not in it, but it's like a little something extra. And this little bit of this glimpse into her life as a kid, and this story that obviously inspired her and taught her how to be brave, and about this girl who, like Chris said, not just wasn't afraid of the unknown, but seeks it out. It was perfect. It was perfect. Yeah. Plus, I love a good African folktale, which is Plus, and I once they went back to. I have a dog and a cat. Once they went back to the ancient time, I figured, okay, well, this is a mythology story, and the fact that they still introduced a sci-fi aspect to it was a really pleasant surprise to me. I wasn't expecting that at all, and it really does, why not? From what we know of the Star Trek universe, this legend, this myth, could be entirely true. Well, not so much that she opened up the
she threw all the stars into the sky.
All the stars in the universe, but the other part with aliens happen. Yeah, thought it was great.
Michael's. Go ahead.
It reminded me the first time I watched it, I actually found the alien a little bit jarring the first time through, because it seemed out of place. But then the second time I watched it, when I watched it with my little girl tonight, I remembered my dad telling me stories and making my brother and me the lead characters in the story. And so a little girl growing up in the 23rd century of Star Trek, yeah, of course he's going to put an alien whose ship is broken into the story. It made perfect sense when I put my head into the context of this is a dad telling his little girl a story, putting familiar elements into the unfamiliar to make her feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And also to give her a sense of that she can relate to it. What I loved most about it, and I realized on the second watch, is he wasn't just trying to make her feel better because she was afraid of the dark or afraid of the storm. He was giving her the tools to never be afraid again. And in casting her in the lead role of that story so she could project herself into it, like you said, Rick, I thought it made a lot of sense that he would put in elements that she would cling to based on her current reality that she could also juxtapose onto the more mythological aspects of it.
Yeah. And by the way, folks, if you're keeping track, that's the third use of juxtapose tonight.
And they're all by me.
No, I said it once.
Okay.
Michael's father is voiced by Kenrick Green. He is Sonequa Martin Green's husband, and he played her father in the flashbacks that she had in season 2.
Yep. Which is not creepy at all.
Yeah. Yeah.